So, I did a thing. I'm a nerd. We already knew this. In middle school, I loved coding and game design, and I thought I wanted to do that for a career. But then the Fire Nation attacked, and the harmony of all four lands was, I don't fucking know. I had a college level coding class freshman year of high school, and I hated the teachers so much that I lost all passion for game design and everything. But now, 4 years later, I kind of started to get an interest in it again, and I thought, it might be fun to start making games again, you know? Not like for a job, but like just for fun, you know? Might make a few fun videos out of it, you know, because I need to start making those again. So I've been playing around in this little game engine called Game Maker Studio. It's a really good software, very beginner friendly. Undertale was made in that, just a little fun fact that most people already know. So after about a week of making these like practice videos, I was at work cleaning and I came across this video. It was the announcement for GMTK 2025 theme reveal, and I thought that this was the perfect time to start my first game jam. Yes, after making 3 crappy games, I thought I was ready for a game jam. I'm trying to film and my cat won't shut up. Say hi. The theme of the game jam was Loop, and I immediately thought of one of the practice games that I made. It was this game that was kind of like Asteroids, and I thought that I should make a game like this and incorporate looping into the gameplay and the story. So, the first step to every project is making the project. So I booted up the shooter template on Game Maker just so that I didn't have to make any art assets. I think a good way of describing my artistic ability is if you gave a cat every drug known to man and then gave it a crayon, that would be better than what I'm able to make. I loosely followed a tutorial that Game Maker has for the beginning of my game. I made a few tweaks, like I changed the size of the room from what they have, and I implemented a camera that follows the player around, just so that you're able to explore more and it doesn't feel so like crammed and small. After about 15 minutes, I had a fully functioning game. If fully functional means a game that isn't fun at all and you would rather play dodgeball with bricks than play. One of the problems that I have right now is the rocks. They spawn in the same spot every single time, and that's boring. Since it's an endless game loop, I wanted the rocks to be randomized with where they are. So I wrote some code that would randomize how many spawned and where they spawned, and then if they were in a certain distance of the player, they would be spawned. Like this one. This one. Damn it. How about now? Finally. For the most part, it worked half the time. Every once in a while, there would be an issue where it would still spawn on top of you, and I don't know why. For a while, I had some code that like specifically made it so that if it was within an X and Y coordinate, that it wouldn't spawn there, but then it still would for some reason, and I don't know why. Oh, I had a lot of bugs like that where it's like the code is saying that it shouldn't do that, but it's doing it anyway, and I don't know how to fix it. That just kept happening to me, and I didn't care enough to fix it. Then I made a simple UI system that displayed the points and the high score. Definitely worked on the first try. Okay, so the next thing that I spent way too long on was some text that displayed press space to continue after you died, and then once you press space, then the game would restart, which I'm really frustrated with looking back on because this is one of the first things that I replaced when I made menus. Especially since like it didn't work half the time, like it would like just freeze the game, and so I had to figure out that whole thing. But then I made some music, and by music I mean I made a singular sound effect that plays when you beat the high score of the game. I then implemented it and it works most of the time. I don't know what happens, but every once in a while it'll just do it whenever you didn't beat the high score. Again, in the code it shouldn't do that, but it does. Next, I made a main menu and a death screen, which undid the last thing that I did. Stupid. I also made an upgrade shop and a way to return to the game from. So if you're in the home screen, then you'll go back to the home screen. If you're on the death screen, it'll go back to the death screen. Just so that you can then upgrade yourself and go back to wherever you came. I then made a splash screen that displayed some dialogue explaining the story, and I thought it would be really funny to have it have nothing to do with Starship Troopers. In hindsight, it wasn't funny at all, but at the time I thought it was hilarious. I then thought that this game kind of would get boring with upgrades because it's next to impossible to die once you like start upgrading yourself because you're just fighting against meteor, like asteroids. Like, how's that fun? So what I ended up doing was I created little enemies that are just the exact same as your character but red. And then I took the code from the rock creator and I took the player code and I mushed them together. All that sounds easy, right? Right? It took 5 hours. This is my first time ever making enemy AI, and it is hard. I looked up 10 different tutorials, and none of them were able to work. I think my game was just too janky for any of these advanced, like, enemy AI systems to work. So I ended up just having to scrap all of that, scrap 5 hours of work, and just be like, screw it, I'm gonna make my own enemy AI. And that finally worked because my game is too janky. So how I ended up doing this was I used a function that finds the closest instance of the rock, and then it has a point system. If it's closer to the player than the rock, then it gets a point for the player. If it's closer to a rock than the player, it gets a different point. Even if the player is closer, if there's a rock within like 50 pixels of it, it'll go after the rock to not hit it. I did this because I didn't want to have to add a collision thing that would affect the enemy. Probably would have just been easier to do that. Then if the points for the player were higher than for the rock, then it would shoot the player. If it was higher for the rock, then it would shoot the rock. And here is it working. I said that and my green screen started to fall. This is now when I finally made the upgrade store functional, because right now it's about as functional as my parents' marriage was. So after implementing all of this, I was now having a new issue where every time that you would enter the screen for the shop, the total amount of your currency wouldn't be displayed properly and would just be at 0. So my fix for this was like to like restart the event if it was the first time that you had opened it this go around of the game. But then the problem with that was then when you would go back to the death screen, like your score would be at 0 suddenly, and then I tried to do the same thing for that, but then it would make it so that when you went back into the room it would be 0. I gave up and I just thought I'll just have the death screen not show the right amount of points when you go back into it. Now the game is technically finished. I just recolored the rocks and I added some background music and I made a save system. Then finally, I did a lot of playtesting. I had my friends and my coworkers play this, and one of my coworkers played this game for an hour straight. It's not that fun of a game. So I ended up doing some small bug fixes and some balancing because there was some balancing issues that some of my coworkers found. But yeah, that was my first game jam. Honestly, it was a really fun process, and I expect to do this more. I might even make some more videos about this because, you know, I need more ideas for those. And I also might make a video expanding upon this game, making it like an actually full game so that I can release. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I have some ideas for how I might make this like a full video game, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that in the video that I make about it if I ever decide to actually make a video about it, you know. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. If you want to play this game that I made, click the link below. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. Hey, it's weird to think that it's been close to a year since the last time I uploaded. I mainly just wasn't happy with the quality of videos that I was making, and I wanted to do bigger, more creatively fulfilling videos. I have a few in the works right now, so I look forward to getting back into this. So, subscribe so I don't explode.